From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
As the heat wave cooks Montana, more and more wildfires are happening. Coming up, the latest on the Goose Fire in southern Madison County and a new fire in Lewis and Clark County. Plus, south of Missoula residents are facing evacuations due to wildfire. What's happening in the Lola Pass area also ahead this morning. And that kind of leads nicely into that shot right there from the Community Hospital of Anaconda's iCam. A little smoke hanging over the Butte area.
Yeah, that Goose Fire adding some extra smoke in the lower levels, but we still have a lot of smoke in that upper part of the atmosphere from Idaho, Oregon, Washington, California. And air quality suffering as a result.
Sure.
And I'm going to update those numbers coming up here in about 12 minutes or so. Temperatures right now 40s and 50s for most of us, 41 in West Yellowstone. A pretty comfortable morning. Again, the smoke is out there. This is our Bozeman iCam on the MSU campus. That orange glow is always troubling at this time of year. Daytime highs near the 90-degree mark once again. It is going to be hot, dry, and smoky. So if you're spending time outdoors, please take care of yourself, drink plenty of water, find opportunities to rest inside as well. We'll talk more about what you can expect in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Matt. 6:31, we start in Madison County. Evacuation orders underway as the Goose Fire continues to grow. This is a photo sent to us from Incident Command. Actually, that's the map of that area. According to the latest update, fire has grown to 1,125 acres. Sunday, fire managers worked with the county sheriff's office to coordinate the evacuation of Cliff Lake, Hilltop, and Wade Lake campgrounds. Crews were on scene at Wade Lake Resort through the night. They're also working to protect the Cliff Lake Lodge. Location you can see on the map. The fire is about 30 miles from Ennis. Now, according to Incident Command, that fire at least 400 yards away from the lake at this point. Additional crews are on hand with 170 firefighters on scene. Commanders have expanded the closed-off area to include Antelope Prong Boat Launch and the Wade Lake, Hilltop, and Cliff Point campgrounds. No word yet on what caused that fire. Also, Baxendale Volunteer Fire Department posted these pictures to Facebook, saying firefighters were called to help with the Rock Creek in Lewis and Clark County yesterday. A video from Craig last night, shot by MTN's Lindsay Stanger, just a few hours after that fire was reported, according to the Montana Department of Natural Resources and Conservation. That fire just over 3,400 acres and is about 80% contained. MTN's Kaylee Neitzel went to Craig to talk to people in the area.
Saturday evening, around 6 p.m., first responders were alerted about a fire between Wolf Creek and Craig. The fire began on Highway 287 near mile marker 2 and spread towards Interstate 15 after an accidental incident with broken machinery sparked the flames. Fire rescue teams then worked overnight to contain the wildfire to about 50% and will continue their efforts to completely contain the blaze.
Crews are going to continue to work the fire edge through the night, so the fire will be staffed overnight. Once we decide on how the progress went today, we'll determine the right staffing level for tomorrow, but there will be personnel on the fire working it for the next couple days.
The fire has been estimated to have burned around 3,400 acres of land between Wolf Creek and Craig. But despite the quick spread of the flames, no buildings were damaged and no people, animals, or livestock were injured in the blaze. For safety concerns, 8 homes were evacuated in the area of the fire, but were given the clear to go home at 8 a.m. Sunday morning.
Deputies and other law enforcement got in the area, determined that evacuations were necessary along Craig River Road. That information came also with working with fire as well. And that we had there was 8 residences along Craig River Road which were evacuated through the evening. Those evacuations were lifted this morning at 8 o'clock.
The Albertsons grocery store here on Montana Avenue in Helena will be collecting supplies for the fire teams fighting fires between Wolf Creek and Craig. Items needed include things like water, electrolyte drinks, high-protein snacks without chocolate, beef jerky, foot powder, wipes, and cash and gift card donations will also be accepted. In Helena, Kaylee Neitzel, MTN News.
Now, south of Missoula, the Lola Creek Fire is located about 1.5 miles northwest of the Lola Pass Visitor Center. This fire is growing and spreading actively, burning in heavy dead and down timber. That fire, a bit larger than 1,000 acres and just 1% contained. It's also leading to some evacuation warnings as well. MTN News was on the fire lines yesterday. Here's what we know so far.
I'm Geneva Zoltek up on Lola Pass right on the Idaho border, where a full suppression fire response is underway for the Lola Creek wildfire, which was reported Saturday evening. As you can see, roads are already closed as crews get to work responding to this fire. Roads into Granite Creek are closed as Missoula Ranger District units respond to this area experiencing extreme fire danger. Lola Creek Fire Incident Commander J.D. Bauman spoke with MTN News and said the fire is 0% contained and continues to spread and burn actively. Bauman said multiple wildfires burning near the Lola Pass area are expected to grow, and that we're currently seeing fires now that we normally don't see until later in the summer season. Personnel needs are currently being assessed. This area of Lola National Forest is not resistant to quickly growing fires. There is heavy dead and downed timber in this area. Some parts are old growth and have probably not experienced fire in over 100 years. Powell Ranger District is working fires on the Idaho side of the Clearwater-Nez Perce National Forest. 2 miles away from the Lola Creek, the BM Hill Fire, several hundred acres in size, is spreading towards Montana. MTN News spoke with Seattle motorcyclist Bob Morgan riding to Montana.
When we left Kamaya, on the west side of the river was on fire, right by the river. And the smoke was billowing all the way up to the top of the trees on the highest hills there, which is almost like if you take that hill there, that smoke from the fire was going up through the trees, billowing through there. My gosh.
Morgan said he saw about 5 miles of fire burning brush near the highway. Firefighters remain vigilant for incoming weather patterns. Heavy smoke along with wind is settling into the area, prompting visitors and residents to stay on high alert. In Lola Pass, Geneva Zoltek, MTN News.
Now, officials advise the public stay away from the unfolding situation before heading into those areas to recreate. This time, the area there around Lola Creek and the Lola Pass is under an evacuation warning. In other headlines, almost a week after she went missing in the Beartooth-Absaroka Wilderness, authorities announced they now say that 23-year-old hiker Tatum Morello is no longer alive. That news came from Red Lodge Search and Rescue Incident Commander Tom Kuntz. He says efforts will transition to what they call a limited continuous search for the next couple of weeks.
After nearly a week of the most intensive search and rescue organization that has ever been performed in Carbon County, we believe that lost hiker Tatum Morello is not alive. We have searched the rugged mountains west of Red Lodge, both from the air and on the ground, and were unable to locate any sign of Tate.
Now, Morello was an avid and experienced hiker who planned to climb 5 mountain peaks in the West Fork drainage over the July 4th weekend. Of course, we'll continue to update any developments in this ongoing story. 6:38 now. Will infrastructure reform pass Congress or not? It's something we've been following closely, and it will debate that will intensify this week with Congress returning from their 4th of July recess. Our Joe St. George is in Washington, walks us through how the legislation would be funded, what's at stake for communities, and why passing this into law has become so complicated.
Understanding the infrastructure debate in Congress can be a bit confusing, and that's why we're going for a drive. First stop, President Biden and moderate Democrats and Republicans. They want a bipartisan deal creating $579 billion in new infrastructure spending. For the moment, they think they have the votes to pass this into law. Next stop, conservative leadership. They don't want to raise taxes or spend much more than what's in the bipartisan deal, and some won't vote for the bipartisan deal at all. The final stop, progressive Democrats. They want an additional multi-trillion-dollar spending bill to create programs left out of the bipartisan deal. Major action on infrastructure is expected this week as Congress returns from its July 4th recess. To borrow another transportation analogy, think of this debate as 2 trains attempting to leave the station at the exact same time. The bipartisan deal is on train number 1. This legislation addresses roads, bridges, trains, and broadband, traditional infrastructure projects. The progressive spending bill is on train number 2. This legislation will address education and child care costs. Speaker Nancy Pelosi has already said the bipartisan deal, train number 1, doesn't make it to the White House unless train number 2, the separate spending bill, is moving through Congress as well. The bipartisan deal includes 0 increases in taxes. If no taxes are being raised to pay for this infrastructure plan, where is all this infrastructure money coming from? As far as the bipartisan deal goes, Congress is getting a bit creative. For instance, their plan includes cutting $70 billion from the nation's unemployment benefit program, although lawmakers say it won't impact people out of work. They want to redirect $80 billion in COVID relief funds to fund infrastructure, as well as tell the FCC to generate $65 billion by auctioning off 5G airwave access. Not to mention, Democrat and Republican negotiators want the IRS to audit more Americans. In fact, Congress plans on hiring new investigators to collect $140 billion in taxes the federal government believes they are entitled to. One thing you should know, everything remains fluid on Capitol Hill as this complicated and very large infrastructure debate is expected to receive its first votes in the coming weeks. In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
This month's awaiting child features Kenny. He's a 16-year-old boy from Billings who loves tabletop gaming and doesn't let his cerebral palsy slow him down one bit.
I have Dungeon mastered for my first time yesterday, and trust me when I say, I did not expect there to be mental math. There's mental math.
Kenny became interested in the game Dungeons & Dragons about a month ago. He's got a group of 4 friends who travel along with him in the tabletop campaigns. Video games were Kenny's first gaming love, but he said there's more freedom in tabletop gaming.
I kind of like how you can do whatever you really want. It's like kind of being in a video game without the soul-sucking screen in front of you.
Kenny has cerebral palsy and was confined to a wheelchair about 1 year ago. Right now, he's waiting until he's done growing to have surgery on his femur that will hopefully reduce his daily pain. Even though he's stuck in a wheelchair, Kenny keeps a good attitude, with his wit and charm shining through in conversation.
Hey, I'm used to it by now. It's actually kind of better than walking. Walking's kind of overrated at this point. I'm like, oh great, more stress on my bones.
In the fall, Kenny will head back for his sophomore year of high school. His favorite class? History. In a forever home, Kenny said he would like a family that would support his interests of reading, gaming, and the genres of fantasy and sci-fi.
I don't want a family that's overbearing. Like, let me do me. Like sharing like what I like to do, like reading or like the stuff I mentioned earlier. Kind of like a good family like that would support the stuff I like.
In Billings, Mitch Laggy, MTN News.
Oh, we wish Kenny the very best, to say the least. 6:42, we're going to take a quick break here. If you're planning to do a little international travel and you don't have your passport, you better get on it because the delay is huge right now for receiving your passport. We'll have that story when we come back, but first, here's a look at what's coming up at 7 on CBS This Morning.
Good morning. Ahead on CBS This Morning, the call to conserve energy as the blistering heat wave continues in the West. Plus, Richard Branson is the first so-called space billionaire to ride his own rocket outside the Earth's atmosphere. We're at Spaceport America with what this means for commercial space travel. Also, a new book details explosive moments inside the 2020 Trump campaign. First on CBS This Morning, the author joins us with stories on the Trump administration's final months. And only on CBS This Morning, the founder of Health in the Hood talks about empowering communities to grow their own food and how your zip code could affect your health. All coming up when we see you at 7.